In a world full of noise, truth still has a foundation. Welcome to True Foundations.
The flood ended. The waters receded. The earth dried. Noah walked off the ark onto soil that had been washed clean of everything that corrupted it. Adonai made a covenant, the first cosmic covenant after judgment, and stretched a rainbow across the sky as its sign. A new beginning, a second Eden, a world that had been given back to humanity, washed of its violence, emptied of its corruption. That is the story we were told. And then you keep reading. Numbers 13. The 12 spies have just returned from Canaan, the land Adonai promised to give Israel, the land flowing with milk and honey, the land they have been walking toward for 40 years. And 10 of the 12 come back with a report that stops everything cold. The land through which we passed to spy it out is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people that we saw in it are of great height. And there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, who come from the Nephilim, and we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them. The Nephilim, after the flood, after the judgment, after the rainbow, after 400 years of Adonai patiently building a covenant people to take back the land, the Nephilim are still there. How? If the flood was Adonai's response to the corruption the Bene ha-Elohim produced, if the waters were sent specifically to cleanse the earth of that corruption, then why, when Israel arrives at the border of the Promised Land, do they find themselves looking up at the descendants of the very beings the flood was supposed to destroy? This is one of the most important questions in the entire Tanakh, and most of us were never taught to ask it. Because if you can answer this question, if you can follow the thread from Genesis 6 through the flood, through Canaan, through the campaigns of Moshe and Yehoshua and David, you will understand something about the nature of the spiritual war that Yeshua walked into, and about what he came to actually do. Let's begin. What the flood actually did, and what it did not. And God saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. The corruption before the flood was not merely moral. It was not simply that humanity had become violent and self-serving, though it had. The corruption ran deeper than that. It had been seeded into the fabric of creation itself by the transgression of the Bene Elohim, the sons of God, who crossed the boundary between heaven and earth, took human wives, and produced the Nephilim. The Nephilim were hybrid, corrupted, something the created order was never designed to contain. And their presence was not simply threatening, it was defiling. The earth itself, the ground, the land, the territory, had become corrupt because of what occupied it. This is why the flood language in Genesis is so total. It is not a regional event. It is not a cleanup of particularly bad neighborhoods. It is a cosmic reset. Waters covering every high place, the deep and the sky releasing their waters simultaneously, as if creation itself is being unmade and remade. And the waters prevailed so mightily on the earth that all the high mountains under the whole heaven were covered. Every high place covered. The physical Nephilim, those bodies, those corrupted forms, were destroyed. And Noah, his wife, his sons, and their wives were preserved. 8 souls, a remnant, a covenant thread through the waters. But here is what the flood did not do. And this is the piece that most teachers simply pass over. The flood destroyed the physical bodies of the Nephilim. It did not destroy whatever it is that persists when a being of that nature dies. In Second Temple Jewish tradition, the tradition that Yehuda, Jude, draws on directly in his letter, and that Kepha references in his, the Nephilim were understood to have a dual nature. They were physical, but they were also something more. They were the offspring of divine beings, beings from the realm of spirit, And when their physical form was destroyed, that spiritual component was not simply extinguished. It was released into the world, homeless, cut off from the divine realm by their corrupted origin, cut off from physical form by their death in the waters, neither fully of heaven nor fully of earth, wandering. The book of 1 Enoch, not scripture, but a text so deeply embedded in Second Temple Jewish tradition, the spirits of the giants shall be evil spirits upon the earth, and evil spirits shall they be called. The spirits of heaven have their dwelling in heaven, but evil spirits, proceeding from their bodies, corrupt, fall, are active, and destroy on the earth. This is not mythology layered onto the biblical text. This is the interpretive framework that the biblical writers, including the writers of the Brit Chadashah, appear to take for granted, because the behavior of the unclean spirits in the Gospels only fully makes sense within this framework. When Yeshua casts out an unclean spirit and it wanders through waterless places, seeking a place to rest, that is not the behavior of an abstract spiritual force or a metaphor for moral failure. That is the behavior of something that once had a body, that remembers what it was to be embodied, that craves what the flood took from it. But we are getting ahead of ourselves, because before we arrive at Yeshua's ministry, we need to understand how the physical line of the Nephilim continued after the flood, in a way that brought Israel face to face with it at the borders of the Promised Land. And also after that, the line that continued. There is a phrase in Genesis 6:4 that most readers pass over so quickly they do not realize what it contains. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. And also after that. 3 words, enormous theological weight. The incursion of the Bene ha-Elohim described in Genesis 6 was not a singular, sealed event. The transgression happened before the flood, but the text itself, written by Moshe, who would later stand at the border of Canaan and personally lead campaigns against the giant clans, indicates that this kind of incursion happened again. Not on the same scale, not with the same earth-filling catastrophic corruption. The flood had interrupted and reduced the problem, but it had not ended it. After the flood, after Noach, after the covenant, after the rainbow, the Bene ha-Elohim appear to have crossed the boundary again, in a more contained way, in specific geographical locations, producing what Scripture then calls, in different regions and different periods, by different names, the Anakim, the Rephaim, the Zamzummim, the Emim. These are the giant clans that populate the land of Canaan and the Transjordan by the time Israel arrives. They are not simply large people. They are identified in the text as connected to the same root as the Nephilim. They are described with the same kind of language, formidable, terrifying, beyond ordinary human proportion. Written and oral history speaks of giants from nearly every ancient culture on Earth, from the ancient halls of China to Native American people groups. Legends of giants are still spoken about to this day. The human memory of the giants persist. Deuteronomy 2 and 3 catalog them with the kind of careful geographic precision that tells you the writer understands exactly what he is dealing with. Moshe is not simply describing a military landscape. He is mapping a spiritually contaminated territory, a people great and many and tall as the Anakim. And at the northern edge of that territory, in a region called Bashan, there was a king. His name was Og. And of all the giant clan rulers in the land, of all the descendants of the Nephilim lineage that Moshe would face, Og of Bashan is the one the text gives us a detail about that has stopped careful readers in their tracks for centuries. Og of Bashan, the last giant king. For only Og the king of Bashan was left of the remnant of the Rephaim. Behold, his bed was a bed of iron. Is it not in Rabbah of the Ammonites? 9 cubits was its length, and 4 cubits wide, according to the common cubit. By the standard cubit, approximately 18 inches, that is 13.5 feet. This was not a man of exceptional height. This was something else. And Moshe, the narrator, pauses to tell us this detail. The bed is still in Rabbah. You can go see it. This is not legend. This is verifiable. But the geography matters as much as the king. Bashan. In the ancient Canaanite world, Bashan was not simply a region with a large ruler. It carried a specific spiritual weight that the ancient readers of this text would have recognized immediately. The Hebrew root of Bashan, Basan, is connected to the serpent. In ancient Ugaritic texts, the Canaanite literature that provides the closest cultural background to early Hebrew scripture, the region of Bashan was associated with the realm of the Rephaim dead, the divine shades, the underworld. The mountain of Bashan, Mount Hermon, was understood in ancient tradition to be the very mountain where the Bene Elohim descended before the flood. It is the mountain that one Enoch names as the original transgression. And Og, the last giant king, ruled there. This was not coincidence in the ancient understanding of territorial and spiritual geography. This was a stronghold. And when Moshe leads Israel's campaign against Og, the text treats it differently from a standard military engagement. Then Adonai said to me, "Do not fear him, for I have given him and all his people and his land into your hand." Adonai speaks directly. Do not fear him. This is the same instruction given before the most spiritually significant battles in Israel's history. Not the routine military campaigns, but the ones that carry cosmic weight. And Israel defeats Og. The last giant king is gone. The territory of Bashan, the mountain of the original transgression, the gateway to the underworld in ancient cosmology, is taken. Michael Heiser notes that this conquest is not simply military or territorial. It is a reversal. The place where heaven first crossed its boundary into earth is being reclaimed by the covenant people in the name of Adonai. But the giant clans were not only in Bashan. They were waiting in the land ahead.
Before we go further, if what you're hearing is opening something up for you, take a moment to like this video. It's a simple thing, but it helps this teaching reach people who are searching for exactly this. You can also subscribe so you never miss a deep dive. We're glad you're here. Now, let's continue.
Cherem and the conquest. Why Adonai commanded what he commanded. This is the section that troubles many readers of the Tanakh, both Jewish and Christian. The command to cherem, the Hebrew word that means something like total consecration to destruction, leaving nothing alive, seems on the surface incompatible with the character of Adonai that the rest of Scripture reveals. How do you reconcile the God who grieves in Genesis 6, the God whose heart is deeply pained by the suffering of his creation, with the God who commands Joshua to utterly destroy the inhabitants of Canaan? It is a real question, and it deserves a real answer. The Heiser framework provides one that is deeply rooted in the text itself. The command to cherem was not a blanket ethnic judgment against the Canaanite people as a whole. The text is more precise than that. The command is specific. It targets specific cities, specific territories, specific clans. And those cities and territories and clans are precisely the locations where the giant clans, the Anakim, the Rephaim, the descendants of the Nephilim lineage, were concentrated. This was not ethnic cleansing. This was a targeted divine operation against a specific corrupted lineage in specific contaminated territory that had been operating in rebellion against Adonai's created order since before the flood. And Joshua came at that time and cut off the Anakim from the hill country, from Hebron, from Debir, from Anab, and from all the hill country of Judah, and from all the hill country of Israel. Joshua devoted them to destruction with their cities. There was none of the Anakim left in the land of the people of Israel. Only in Gaza, in Gath, and in Ashdod did some remain. Some remained. In Gaza, in Gath, in Ashdod, Philistine territory. The Anakim lineage was not fully eliminated in the conquest of Joshua. Some survived. They retreated to the coastal cities of the Philistines, and they would resurface centuries later in a valley between two armies, with a champion standing in front of them. David and the end of the physical line. And there was again war with the Philistines at Gob. Then Sibbecai the Hushathite struck down Saph, who was one of the descendants of the giants. Most readers of the Tanakh know one battle: the Valley of Elah, the shepherd boy, the stone, the giant. But there were 5 battles, 5 champions, 5 of the Rephaim line, the Yalid ha-Rapha, the born of the Rephaim, each one falling in combat against David or his mighty men. The text of 2 Samuel 21:15-22 names them: Ishbi-Benob, who thought to kill David, whose spear weighed 300 shekels of bronze, struck down by Abishai, son of Cheruah. Saph, struck down by Sibbecai the Hushathite at Gob, the brother of Goliath the Gittite, whose spear shaft was like a weaver's beam, struck down by Elkanah, son of Yair, and a man of great stature, 6 fingers on each hand, 6 toes on each foot, 24 digits in total, who taunted Israel and was struck down by Jehonatan, son of Shema, David's brother. These 4 were born to the giant in Goth, and they fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants. 4 named, plus Goliath earlier, 5 in total. And then the text simply moves on. No dramatic declaration, no theological summation, just the matter-of-fact end of a list. But read it in the full arc of what we have been tracing, and the weight of this list is immense. The physical line of the Nephilim comes to its end here, in the campaigns of David, in the battles of his mighty men. The covenant warrior from the tribe of Yehuda, the shepherd king, the one from whose line Mashiach will come. And Goliath himself, the most famous of them all, deserves a moment, because we have turned him into a children's story about being brave when things are hard. But Goliath of Gath was Yalid ha-Rapha, born of the Rephaim line, 6 cubits and a span, somewhere between 9 and 10 feet tall. His bronze armor alone weighed 5,000 shekels. The iron point of his spear weighed 600 shekels. He stood in that valley and taunted the armies of Israel for 40 days. 40 days. The same number as the flood, the same number as Moses on Sinai, the same number as Yeshua in the wilderness. 40 is not an accident in Hebrew narrative. 40 is a period of testing, a period of confrontation, a period before a decisive outcome. And what does David say when he steps into that valley? You come to me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come to you in the name of Adonai Tsavaot, the God of the armies of Israel whom you have taunted. Adonai Tsavaot, the Lord of hosts, the commander of the divine armies, both visible and invisible. David understands what this battle actually is. He is not fighting a very large man. He is fighting the last great champion of a lineage that has been operating in rebellion against Adonai's created order since before the flood. The stone connects. Goliath falls. And with the campaigns of 2 Samuel 21, the 4 at Goth, the physical line ends.
The physical line is gone. The problem is not. The bodies are gone. Every Nephilim champion, every giant clan ruler, every Yalid ha-Rapha named in the text, gone. But the spirits are not. The disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, those beings that one Enoch describes as proceeding from their bodies after the flood, wandering the earth, active and destroying, those had nowhere to go, no physical line to inhabit, no territorial stronghold to anchor to. Homeless, wandering, multiplying their darkness in the unseen realm. And something else had happened in the meantime. Something at a plain in the land of Shinar. Something that reorganized the entire spiritual geography of the earth. Because what happened at Babel was not primarily about a tower. It was the third rebellion.
And it is the backstory of every principality and power that Shaul describes in Ephesians 6. All of it began at Babel. One man with a stone. I want to pause here before we step into the darkness of Babel and what followed it, because the story we have been tracing is remarkable, and it is easy, in the sweep of its epic scope, divine beings and floodwaters and giant kings and covenant campaigns, to miss the thing that is most personal about it. Adonai always works through a remnant, through one man or one family or one tribe, standing faithfully in a world that has turned away. Noah, one family, found righteous in a generation of total corruption. Moses, one man, drawn from the waters, raised in the house of the enemy, standing before Pharaoh in the name of Adonai. Yehoshua, one commander, leading a ragged covenant people against fortified cities and giant clans, claiming the land in the name of Adonai. David, one shepherd, one stone in a valley where every trained soldier had refused to go. There is a pattern here that runs deeper than military strategy or human courage. It is the pattern of Adonai choosing what the world considers small and doing through it what all the power of the world cannot accomplish. But God chose what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. David did not walk into that valley because he had calculated the angle of the shot. He walked in because he understood something that 40 days of Goliath's taunting had not shaken loose from his conviction, that the battle belonged to Adonai. Adonai, who rescued me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine. He was reasoning from history, from personal history, from the record of Adonai's faithfulness in his own life, the lion, the bear, to the certainty of Adonai's faithfulness in this moment. This is the same reasoning available to you. Not courage as an act of will, courage as the result of remembering. Remembering what Adonai has done, trusting that the one who has been faithful will continue to be faithful. Walking into the valley in that trust, not because you were strong enough, but because he is. David's victory over Goliath was a covenant moment. It was the seed of the woman crushing the head of what the serpent's rebellion had produced. But it was not the final moment. It pointed forward to one who would walk into a valley darker than Elah, against an enemy more ancient than Goliath, with no stone in his hand, only his own body given willingly. And we will get there. But first, the tower. In our next episode, we go to Babel, a tower, a city, one people with one language gathered in a plain, and a third rebellion, one that did not produce giants or flood or physical corruption, but that reorganized the spiritual geography of the entire earth. In a single divine act at that tower, Adonai disinherited the nations and handed them over to the oversight of rebellious divine beings. And then he chose one man from among those nations, an old man with a barren wife, from a city of idol worshippers. And from that choice, Avram of the whole story turns. But before we get to Avram, we need to understand the world he was called out of, and why the world that Yeshua steps into 4,000 years later is the direct consequence of what Adonai did at that tower. We're going there next. Don't miss it.
Thank you for going deep with me today. If something stirred in you, question, a realization, something that shifted, I'd love to hear it. Drop it in the comments below. You might not realize it, but what you share could be exactly what someone else needed to read. If this opened something up for you, consider passing it on. Share it with someone who's been asking the hard questions, someone who needs to know that the story of Scripture is deeper, richer, and more alive than they've been told. Hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. We're just getting started. Until then, shalom, and keep seeking the light.